It's on the same.
connection between the product.
פרק לב, והנה.
לא פשוט שזה פרק לב, לא פשוט. בכלל.
מה נעשה?
בכוונה.
זה בכוונה לא פשוט?
כן.
This table can get extended or this is the max size?
No, I think next week we're gonna learn there already.
לא. הלוואי.
We need a new house already, not a new table.
הלוואי.
That's the limit line. ואז we need מלצרית ודברים.
Okay, so we're up to chapter 32. Chapter 32, as was mentioned here in the Hebrew letters, is Lamed Bet. The letters Lamed Bet spell the word Lev, which is the heart. This is the heart of the matter. It's not a coincidence. Nothing in Tanya is a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that the Alter Rebbe put this chapter as chapter 32, and the chapter is all about how to properly fulfill the mitzvah of loving your fellow Jew as yourself. It's not completely random. It does follow the subject that we've been learning till now. And if you remember, those of you who have been here since the beginning of this project, we started the Tanya class how long ago?
Almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years.
Year and a half. We started then. It was right before Pesach, I think we started. I'm not sure when, right before Sukkot. So we decided to learn one chapter and then go back to the beginning afterwards. And the one chapter we learned was this chapter 32, because it's really the, no pun intended, the heart of the matter. It's the heartbeat of Hasidic philosophy. It's the heartbeat of Torah, as we will discover in the chapter. So what we've been studying till now is that the last two chapters were about how to judge other people favorably. Never judge somebody until you've been in their place. And their place, quote unquote, means everything that goes into making them who they are. So their circumstances in life, their upbringing, the nature of their soul, the nature of their evil inclination, how strong their temptations are, how strong their desire for those temptations are. So you really can never truly be in somebody else's place, because you'll never have exactly the same. I know him. You'll never actually have the same circumstances. Then he goes on to say, not only that, but you can assume that the other person is actually, even if it's somebody who is failing on the surface, morally or religiously, you can assume that they're actually doing far better than you, because for all you know, they're struggling mightily to overcome their temptations. And although they're, at the end of the day, they might be failing, can you even claim to be putting in that kind of struggle? What if you don't have those types of temptations, and therefore, so not only can you not judge them, and not only do you have to assume that they're not any worse than you, you can actually assume that they actually deserve a lot more credit than you. In that chapter, in chapter 30, I believe, he said that one of the ways to overcome your own unholy self-fascination, or you're being self-absorbed in your own unholiness, is to discover the lowliness of your spiritual state. Just the very fact of your being, that you can actually deny God what he wants. You can deny the existence of God, whereas no other created being has that ability. Only the human being can actually rebel, so to speak, against God in that way. So even the lowliest creature out there is on a higher spiritual state than you, just by fact of your own existence, because you have that ability. Of course, that also means the flip side of that is you have the ability to choose God, which no other creature has. So that puts you on a higher level also. But for the purposes of tamping down your ego, a great way to do that is to recognize your own spiritual lowliness. Then the question was, and we're not going to get into the details of that again. We can go back to those chapters if you want to review them. But the point is, for the purposes of this chapter, is he says there's a big problem with that seemingly, which is you're supposed to serve Hashem with joy. And if you convince yourself that you're a slouch, you'll get depressed over your own spiritual lowliness. If you get depressed, you can't serve Hashem with joy. So there's a major pitfall here. How do you go about humbling yourself without depressing yourself? That's the question. The answer he gives is recognize that everything that you're going to humble yourself about is physical and body and animal soul stuff. But you're a lot more proud of your godly soul, your spiritual side, your godly side. So if you can find joy in your godly side, which is actually much more relevant than your animal side, then the sadness over the lowliness of your human self can be completely overridden by the joy of the fact that you have a godly soul in you, and you can do this godly soul a tremendous favor by letting it out of this exile that it finds itself in the lowliness of your human self. Remember that subject. The point being that by recognizing that we actually have far more appreciation for the nefesh elokit, far more appreciation for the godly soul, than we have concern over the animal soul, or certainly the body, our physical selves. We're much more excited about our godly soul than we are disappointed about our human selves. If you can do that, then you're ready to study chapter 32, which is all about elevating the soul over the body, elevating your godly self over your human self. That's what we're going to talk about. So let's get right into the chapter. As by way of introduction, there are two. We're going to talk about love. Lamed Bet. Lamed Vet spells love. Yeah. There are two kinds of love. There are basically, two categories of love. There's the love we have for ourselves, and then there's the love you have for someone else.
Which is need to be the same.
The mitzvah is to get yourself to love somebody else the same way you love yourself. But what does that mean? What are the two different ways?
Same as you love someone else.
That's not what it says. That would be a disaster. What's the difference between the two kinds of love? Because we're going to say you're supposed to love others the way you love yourself. How do you love others and how do you love yourself?
Unconditional.
So, what does unconditional love mean?
There's no condition.
In technical terms, they're called ava atzmit and ava sichlit, which translate as essential love versus intellectual love. What that means is, when I love you, it's because I discover your virtues. I discover your value. I discover what you do to enhance the world or to enhance my life, and therefore I love you. In other words, my mind led me to my feelings for you. I discovered something about you that I like, and that developed into something deep and profound and emotional. That's called ava sichlit. It's a love that you create with your mind, that comes through your intellect. Ava Atzmit means essential love, means it doesn't require any kind of prompt. It doesn't require any kind of intellectual stimulation. It's just a fact. I love myself. Why do I love myself? Do I think I'm so great? Well, if I think I'm great, it's because I love myself, not the other way around. If I love you, it's because I think you're great. If I think I'm great, that's because I love me. It's the opposite. Essential love means it starts with the love. So the question is, if I love myself essentially because I am me, and therefore I will do anything to preserve me, or to defend me, or to protect me, how could I possibly be required to love you in the same way? The only way I love you ever is when I find some virtue in you. So when the Torah says, love your neighbor like you love yourself, love your fellow Jew as you love yourself, is that even realistic? How could you possibly ask somebody to love somebody else, just the same, like love somebody else with self-love? What does that mean? That's what we're going to talk about in chapter 32. Ready for this one? Please fasten your seatbelts and put your seat backs and tray tables in there. Through the entire flight, and do not tamper with the smoke detector in the laboratories, because FAA regulations, which we're allowed to make up every flight. Vehine, chapter 32. Vehine, what page are we on?
46.
Rumor has it we're on page 146. Vehine, al yidei kiyum hadvarim hanal, through fulfilling everything that we've spoken about in the last few chapters. Liyos gufoy nivza v'nimas be'enav, to get to the point where your physical, your human self is just completely loathsome in your own eyes. You're disgusted with your human self. Rak simchas eiti simchas hanefesh levado, your joy is only the joy of the soul, of the godly soul. Harezu derech yeshara v'kala, this is a direct and easy path, lavay lidei kiyum mitzvahs v'havta rachkamecha, to come to fulfilling the mitzvah of loving your fellow as you love yourself. It's the path of least resistance to fulfilling that mitzvah. Lekol nefesh miyisrael, the migodel vad kota, not just the impressive Jews, every single Jew from the highest to the lowest. Because, as we said, your body, your physical self has become disgusting to you, loathsome, unattractive to you. And the soul and the spirit, who could possibly estimate their value and their greatness, in their source in God. All souls are basically identical, and we have one Father. That's why all Jews are called literally brothers. We're all literally one family. Because of the source of the soul in the one God. Since all of our souls are part of one God, that means that if you have a piece of Hashem Echad in you, and I have a piece of Hashem Echad in me, then we are basically the same person. We are one. We don't feel like one, because the bodies are very separate. So you feel separate. And therefore, those who make their bodies, their physical human selves, the primary, and their souls are the secondary, it's impossible. It's impossible for them to have true love between one another. Only the kind of love that is dependent on some external factor, like I like your qualities. If you don't have any qualities that I love, and I consider the body, the physical, the human side of me to be more impressive or more important than the spiritual side, than the soul of me, then I can't love you, because I love me too much. And you don't enhance my experience of me in any way, so I have no love for you. If the body is the primary. Very clandestinely, he slipped in here 3 different levels of description of the oneness of the souls. He says, the souls, who can possibly know their level, their greatness in their source, which is Elokim Chaim, living God. Then he says, B'shagam shekulan masimois, and they are all identical. And then v'av echad l'kulana, we all have one Father. That's actually 3 different descriptions, not one long description. The first description is, if you notice, he uses there are so many ways that we can refer to God. Here he refers to God as Elokim Chaim, the living God, but in the plural. Why does God have a name that's plural? The answer is because this level, Elokim Chaim, this aspect, or this aspect of God that's being referred to with these names, is the source of souls. Souls are supposed to come out different. Otherwise, we would all be the same outwardly. So
souls are different, or the body are different?
Souls. If you remember earlier in Tanya, it talked about how souls can derive from different levels of the tzimtzum, right? When God diminishes his influence and his obvious presence, just like in physical creation, there are some physical beings that look much more alive than others. Souls are the same way. Depending on how much obvious godly energy, creative energy is present in that, like a stone has very little obvious creative godly energy in it. A plant has more, an animal has more, a human being has more. Souls are the same way. So because souls are the same way, that's why he says their source in Elokim Chaim. That's that source in God where souls are different. They're coming from a place where God is creating differences. Then he says they're all identical. That's a slightly higher level where the souls are not different, but they're still not absolutely one. There are a bunch of different souls that look exactly the same. And then v'av echad l'kulana, we all have one Father, so we're all really one. That's like, not just that we look alike, but we are actually one being. So there are 3 different levels there, and that becomes relevant later in the chapter. Hopefully we'll get to it. But the point is that as long as you're considering your human self to be the exciting part of you, you cannot love somebody else without a good reason. It's not going to be automatic. And this is why Hillel, the elder, the great Hillel, said about this mitzvah, Zehu kol haTorah kula, that the story with the guy who wanted to convert, and he came to Hillel. First he went to Shammai and he said, teach me the entire Torah while I stand on one foot, and Shammai chased him away. Then he went to Hillel and he asked him, teach me the entire Torah while I stand on one foot, and Hillel said, what is hateful unto you, do not do unto others, which is a bite-sized interpretation of the same concept as v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your fellow as yourself. He said, this is the entire Torah, v'idach pirushahi v'chulu, that's the entire Torah. All the rest of Torah is commentary on this one mitzvah. So the Alter Rebbe is saying that this idea that you can only love someone else for real if you put your soul as primary and your human self secondary, whereas if you consider your human self, if you consider your physical being the real you, and your spiritual self secondary, then you cannot love anybody else. This explains what Hillel meant when he said this is the entire Torah. Because obviously that statement does require commentary. How is that the entire Torah? Love your fellow as yourself. That's why I should wave a palm frond on Sukkot. What's the connection? I mean, you could easily explain how love your fellow as yourself would encompass all of the mitzvahs between me and my fellow man. But the mitzvahs between me and God, how are they included in the mitzvah of loving your fellow Jew?
Because maybe if you're not first anymore, then it's easier.
So he says, "Ki yesoid v'shoresh kol ha'torahu," and this is a very important line because it's a Benny Friedman song. Anybody who's familiar with the Benny Friedman music? Yesoid v'shoresh kol ha'torahu, the foundation and the root of all of Torah is lehagbia ulahalois hanefesh al haguf, to raise up and to elevate the soul above the body, maila, higher and higher, ad ikra v'shorsha de kol almin, all the way till its source and the root of all of creation, all worlds. Which means higher than any kind of possible distinction between souls. It's not just that the souls should be more important than the body, because if the souls are more important than the body, then if my soul is higher than your soul, then I'm better than you. To raise the soul above the body means to discover the source of souls, where the souls are literally just a spark of God without any kind of definition or any kind of treatment or garment, all the different things that we talked about in Tanya throughout the chapters. V'gaman also, as we will explain later, it's also, the point is also to draw down the infinite light of God into what is called Knesset Yisrael, which means the congregation of the Jewish people, but it literally means, it's a reference to, spiritually, it's a reference to the warehouse of souls, where souls come from in the spiritual realm. Dahainu, what this all means, b'mokar neshamas kol Yisrael, in the source of all Jewish souls, the meheve echad be'echad dafka, so that you have one infused into one specifically. What does that mean? What's the one being infused into one? If you want the infinite light of God to rest among the Jewish people, the infinite light of God is one. One has to rest in oneness. So when the Jewish people are one, we have God resting among us. When the Jewish people are not experiencing their oneness, they experience less of the divine presence. And not, God forbid, when there is separation between us. Because God does not dwell in a blemished vessel, meaning a broken, fractured people. As we say in the end of the Amida prayer, we say, Barchenu Avinu Kulanu Ke'echad Ba'ar Panechad. Bless us, our Father, all of us together with the light of your face. We receive Hashem's blessings when we're all together. We say it right there in the blessing, as is explained elsewhere at great length. In the Jerusalem Talmud, there is an analogy given. It says, discord or disunity among the Jewish people is not logical. It's not rational, because the Talmud says, just like it wouldn't make any sense if you were building something and you're swinging a hammer, and accidentally the hammer in your right hand hits your left hand, no one would suggest that your left hand should take revenge against your right hand.
Like it was somebody else's right hand. It
Then-
did make sense.
Then you got a problem.
He have a problem.
But yeah, but if one limb hurts another limb, there's no desire for revenge because you're one. So the Talmud, the Jerusalem Talmud is saying the same thing with the Jewish people. If a Jew, for whatever reason, hurts another Jew, the thought that I would want to take revenge or even just be angry at, to hold a grudge, to be upset with the other, is as illogical as one limb being angry at the other limb for creating a problem. Now, that doesn't only have to mean physical pain. If you think about it, you read stories in the news. If there's a Jew involved, you have very serious emotional reactions to that story. Obviously, we all know what happens when, God forbid, we read a story about a Jew who was harmed or attacked. We all get very upset. But we also have very strong emotional reactions when we read a story in the news about some guy who stole $50 billion from a bunch of investors, and it turns out he was Jewish. And we all go, "Oy, had to be one of us." Or all kinds of other horrible stories that you read in the news, and it turns out that the point is that on the one hand, it demonstrates the fact that you have that emotionally charged reaction demonstrates that we are one in ways that we don't even realize. We feel connected in ways that we can't deny, even if we don't recognize them for what they are. At the same time, you have to remember that when one part of you embarrasses the rest of you, you can't try to disassociate yourself from that part of you. That's part of you. That's the kind of Ahavat Yisrael, the kind of love for our fellow that the Alter Rebbe is suggesting we're being mandated to have for one another. Another way, by the way, of understanding this idea that Ahavas Yisrael is the entire Torah and the rest is commentary, is if you read a piece of Torah and you don't see some aspect of love your fellow as yourself, then you haven't understood that part of Torah properly. So, for example, if you read that you're supposed to shake a lulav and etrog on Sukkot and you don't see love your fellow Jew as yourself, you're not studying the mitzvah properly. In some cases, the mitzvah will actually demonstrate the magnificence of Ahavat Yisrael, of loving your fellow Jew. And without even realizing it, I use the example of lulav and etrog, where there is a lot of symbolism of the oneness among Jews in that mitzvah. But even without that, even if it's another mitzvah, fasting on Yom Kippur or whatever, not mixing your wool and linen, the idea is that not only is it possible to love your fellow Jew as yourself when you elevate the soul in your own estimation or your own sense of priority or importance. When you elevate the soul over the human, the physical, not only is that the way to gain Ahavat Yisrael, to come to love your fellow Jew, but how much you love your fellow Jew also tells you a lot about how much you elevate the soul over the body. In other words, God says fast on Yom Kippur, and you say, not this year. Why would you do that? There's only one reason. Anyone who has ever done that did it for one reason. Because they elevated the body over the soul. The soul is the little spark of God in you. The body is the sense of self. The sense of self shouted down the sense of godliness in you. anytime we do anything contrary to any one of the mitzvahs in Torah, it's because my sense of self grabbed more attention than I would have liked it to, and it made me do something contrary to Hashem's will. So it's kind of a two-way street where how much emphasis you put on the soul versus the body will determine how much love you have for your fellow Jew. And at the same time, how much love, how you feel about your fellow Jew is a very good barometer for determining how concerned about God's will you are. Goes both ways. So it's an incredible compliment to us. It's also a very frightening indictment of us, because you see people who are purportedly very pious and very righteous and they're very not kind to their fellow Jew. That calls into question all of their piety. It's a scary thought. On the other hand, the positive side is there are people who are not very good at doing mitzvahs. They're not really into it, but they'll die for their fellow Jew. These are good people.
That's in the Talmud, right? Like Tov Lamakom and then Ra Lamakom and Tov La'anashim, La'anashim.
Yeah. So the idea that the love you have for your fellow Jew really is the entire Torah is not an exaggeration. It's not a play on words. It's not euphemistic. It's very literal. The extent to which you elevate the godly in you over the animal in you or over the human in you, that's the extent to which you get Torah. And it's almost more important than how well you're actually observing the particular law. Now, obviously, if you elevate the soul over the body and your obsession is with the godly side of you, you're going to want to do all the mitzvahs as best you can. But that's a separate issue from what we're discussing. What we're talking about is, what is your priority? If your priority is making sure that I'm comfortable, making sure that I'm happy, making sure that I'm well fed and well sustained and have my safety and security and I have what I need, then you can't at the same time love your fellow Jew. It's not possible. You're too self-absorbed. You're too concerned with your human side. And if you're that concerned with your human side, then you can love a fellow Jew, but you can't love as you love yourself. You can only love to the extent that your intellect will allow. So, for example, if I have a really good friend, sure, I'll love my friend, but the love will only go as deep as my intellect. To the extent to which I can understand your virtues and your value in my life, that's the extent to which I can love you, when the love is based on an intelligent response, an intellectual response. When God says in the Torah, "V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha," love your fellow as yourself, that means it has to go far deeper than what the intellect can reach. It has to be the kind of love that you have for yourself. And that's only possible if you're loving your soul, not your body. And that's actually hinted to in the words of the mitzvah itself. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your fellow as you love yourself. You can also just as easily translate it to be, love your fellow as he is yourself. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love him as if he were you, because he is you. Like the love that you have for your parents. It's not a love that you need to discover. It's not a love that you need to conjure up. It's not a love that you need to create. It's not the same as the love for yourself, because the love for yourself is almost indestructible. Or maybe it is indestructible. Your love for your parents can be challenged, but that's an anomaly. The natural state of being is that you love your parents because they're your parents. You love your siblings automatically. You automatically love your siblings until somehow they ruin it. If they haven't ruined it yet, you love your sibling. Why? That's ava
belong to the same tribe, you can't.
That's ava atzmit. That's an essential love. We are one. We have a oneness that makes me love you automatically, just like I love myself automatically.
But we do have it, and just like with my siblings, until we don't agree.
Right.
Yeah. But like, it's not just enough to love, because I can love my sibling, and then when we don't agree, when we can fight.
But you still love them.
Right. Fighting
Yes.
doesn't mean you don't love them. Fighting means you would defend them if they were threatened.
Right.
Fighting, I mean, loving them would mean that.
No,
Of course. Of course you do.
no, but we do have it also for between Jews.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. He's saying, think about how you feel about fellow Jews. You'll realize it's there also. That's exactly what he's saying. That's why I said, if you read the news about somebody who was harmed somewhere out on the other side of the world who you never met, and then you find out that they're Jewish, and the whole story is all of a sudden much more relevant to you. Why? You never met the guy. You're never gonna meet the guy. How did this become your business? I don't know, but it just hits home. By the way, especially when it was an anti-Semitic event, because you literally feel like whatever they did to you, because it's the same. But
Because the short memory of the Holocaust also.
even before the Holocaust, we felt this way. Yeah, the Holocaust was
Not
only.
me, but somebody, yeah.
No, I'm saying this Holocaust is only the last 100 years. What about before the Holocaust? We also had this. The Tanya
Probably, yeah.
Tanya was written 250 years
Yes,
ago.
sure.
We also had pogroms. We also had Khmelnytsky. We had the Cossacks. We had Torquemada. We had
The
plenty
whole,
of.
Judaism is
Yeah,
about somebody who hurt us once.
We had plenty of friends throughout the generations, Baruch Hashem. But the point is that ava atzmit, that essential love that we have for ourselves, whether we are willing to admit it or not, we have that for our fellow Jew. And it's only because av echad lekulana, we have our souls all come from the exact same place. And not only that, even the differences between our various souls is only in a lower level or lower expression of those souls. But in their source, right at the top, where they all come, where our souls all come from, there is absolutely no difference. Lemigadol ve'ad katan, from the greatest soul to the lowest soul, we are actually, literally one being. Like one body, it doesn't make any sense for my right arm to be upset at my left arm. We are one being. And just because in practical application, this part of the body is more, talented than this part of the body, that doesn't make it any less part of the same body.
Well, but I can also be mad at myself. I can feel stupid if I've done something wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
But that doesn't make you love yourself any less.
Yeah. No, I've said before I hate myself.
Even when you say you hate yourself, you're saying it because you love yourself so much that you need to make yourself feel better by saying something nasty. It's all self-love.
Some people also need to learn what is to love themselves first.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about you have to learn how to love yourself. I think that
To
it's
understand,
do you
not to
right.
learn.
You have to know what
understand.
it means.
Yeah, you need to understand like what it's,
Yeah,
and then it's like, this is what it means, and then
right. What it means. Yeah,
and then
what
it's
it
easier
means.
for you to love the other and to do this.
Exactly. But not the pop psychology version of you have to learn how to love yourself before you can learn to love others.
No,
That's ridiculous. It's nonsense. And it's just a distraction that makes you think about yourself more because that's all you really want to do is think about yourself.
No, but you have to make a relationship with yourself before you go out in the world.
You have a relationship with yourself.
Yeah, but if I don't know what I actually want, I can't go out and try to help someone
Or
or ask for it.
what is self-love?
You don't have to know what you want. You have to know that you want. And that means other people want also. So go give them what they want.
Well, who do we know what we want?
What?
But if I don't know. What if I don't know?
If she wants a
You
new
don't-
car, so she will get a new car.
No, you don't have to know what you want. You have to know what it feels like to want. And then you can feel for somebody else who wants. You don't have to know what you want. Don't bother figuring out what you want. Worry about what somebody else wants. You'll accomplish a lot more.
What about chain smoking?
Bad idea.
Chain smoking, it's like
I'm
obviously,
anti.
obviously not loving yourself.
Share a cigarette with someone else.
Right. Oh, that way you love them too.
No, but you understand what I'm saying? Psychology says, first you have to get to know yourself and love yourself before you can try to love others. It's a terrible trick to get yourself to be fascinated with yourself, and therefore you'll never really love anybody else. If you focus really heavy on loving yourself first, the only love you'll have for anybody else is the love for those who bring meaning to your life, which means it's all about you. It's never going to be about them. The way to make it about them is to learn from your own experience of self-love and apply that to somebody else. In other words, when you discover what it means to not like being uncomfortable, what did Hillel Hazaken mean when he said, what you don't like, don't do to somebody else? That's loving yourself. That's v'ahavta l'recha kamocha, loving others. What he was saying is, look at yourself. You know exactly what it's like to be uncomfortable. Make sure you don't make anybody else uncomfortable.
He's saying have some empathy. Basically.
He's saying learn from the fact, learn from your own self-love, the automatic self-love that you can't even help, you can't control. Learn from that how to treat others. You know that you'll defend yourself at all cost. So defend others at all cost.
But even if the guy, the rules goes, you אני אבדך קודמים, and then אני אבדך, and then it says if you don't help yourself, you can help others. If you are in a plane and you go
Always put your
up,
mask on first
right?
before you. Yeah.
So there is something
Why?
that we have, because if I'm not able to help myself, then I'm not present, then there is no me for anybody else.
Right. So that's not the same as helping yourself first. That's helping yourself so that you can help them. They're the subject of the.
So it's not the order of the action, it's the priority.
It's the thought process, right?
Okay.
So, like for example, one of my favorite examples is the psychologists, the child psychologists tell parents, you have to take time out of parenting to take care of yourself. Right? That is the most dangerous thing a parent can do, to take time out of parenting to take care of themselves. Because when a parent tells a child, I'm going to take time off now to go, self-care, whatever, the child feels abandoned and their whole safety structure is gone, disappeared, and they have to somehow survive until the parent comes back. It's a horrific, horrific thing to tell a child.
But you have another parent.
Yeah, but what if they both decide to self-help at the same time?
That's a big.
No, even when there are two parents, a child needs both parents, always. Whether they're in the room at the time or not is irrelevant. The child needs to know that the parents are there for them. Their mind is on the child. So what's the parent supposed to do? Let themselves get burnt out? I mean, the psychologist is right. You need to take care of yourself.
Learn how to do it right.
No, you say to the child, in order for me to be the best mother for you that I can be, I need to take a break. So even when I'm taking a break, I'm thinking of you. I'm not doing it for me. I'm taking a break for you. If the mother can really feel that way, the child won't feel abandoned. So the same thing with charity. If I first have to make sure that I have enough, put on my own mask first before I put on my child's mask on the airplane. If the child realizes the reason I'm doing that is to make sure that I can be there for them, that's perfect. So you're not supposed to abandon yourself. You're supposed to do whatever you need to do for yourself because that's what's important to the other. That's v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Selflessness is a good word. You're supposed to not have any sense of self. You're here to be part of your people, part of your family. You're not a self.
If I'm not a self, who is protecting me? Like,
You are.
but
Out of your obligation to your family, you're going to protect yourself. And you're
so
going to
let's
be.
say somebody's talking to me disrespectfully. What right do I have to stand up?
You have to because because your children don't want to have a mother who's disrespected.
So it's never about me. It always
No.
goes to the surrounding.
Right. And if you're really, really that selfless and humble, then you're stronger than anybody else. In fact, an interesting conversation. I was once talking to my father. I was in yeshiva, and I asked my father, "How do you know the difference between being humble and being intimidated?" So he said, "Give me an example." So I said, "I don't know. You're talking to somebody who's scary, intimidated. How do you know if you're just being humble or if they're really scaring you?" So he said, "Humility doesn't allow for intimidation. If you're really humble, you can't be intimidated." That's very counterintuitive. We think of humble as, I'm tiny, I'm nothing, I'm worthless. That's not humble. Humble is, I don't have the option of being, people say, if you're too humble, you'll be a doormat. If you're truly humble, you can't afford to be a doormat. You need to be healthy and strong so that you can do what you're put here to do. Because you have a job to do, not because you want to be strong, because you have a job to do. So v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, just to get back to the subject, v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha means all of the sense of self that you have is only worth anything because it helps you relate to what the other person is experiencing. So when you learn what it feels like to be insulted, now you know how to never insult another person. And when you know what it feels like to be hungry, now you know how to not let anybody else ever go hungry. All of the negative experiences that you have in your life are in order to teach you what to protect in your fellow. That's what is hateful unto you, don't do unto others. Anything that you don't like, don't let it happen to another person. How do you know what to not let happen to another person? Look at your own life, see what you don't like. Here's your list. Don't protect everybody else. Protect your fellow Jew from all of those experiences that you've had that you didn't like. That's called v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha.
So what if you woke up one day and everybody was dead, right? Would you then be able to be a self?
I would suggest you watch a different movie.
Or go back to sleep.
Change channels. Or go back to
We
sleep.
don't go rampant if everybody's gone, so.
It was the comedian that says,
Now you're thinking.
I woke up one morning and discovered that everything in my apartment was stolen and replaced with exact replicas.
Even right.
Stephen Wright. All right.
Yeah.
I called my friend and I said, "Hey, Bill, you'll never believe it. Everything in my apartment was stolen and replaced with exact replicas." And Bill said, "Do I know you?" Anyway, this kind of v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha is only possible with one major prerequisite, which is you have the ability and you have the good sense to pay more attention to matters of your godly soul than to matters of your human shtick. I do like, I don't like, I want, I don't want. What am I here for? What does God want? When the neshama is more important than my body, basically my body means my self-interest. That's what we mean when we say the body and the animal soul. All of my self-interest, all of my self-preservation, all of my self fascination and addiction.
But what do you do when society is completely counterintuitive to that?
You thumb your nose at society and say, our wisdom is far greater than yours.
Survival.
Survival? Oh, we have great wisdom for that too. Look, we've been around pretty long. It has worked. Look, there's no question that that our wisdom is infinitely smarter and wiser than the wisdom of the world around us. So let's not fall for the very extremely shallow guidance and direction that the world around us is taking. Don't fall for that at all. No, you have to do it this way. You have to do it this way. Have you looked at your way lately? You know, have you seen what your way is leading to?
I agree completely, and also those disconnect when you're disconnected from that level, when everything is so much.
Right, but the only reason you feel disconnected or you feel intimidated by the world around you, the big bad world around you, is because you're concerned about the matters of the guf v'nefesh habahamit. You're concerned about your physical human self. What about my pride? What about my security? What about my comfort? What about my shame? What about my ego? What about my... Leave it alone. Think about your mission. Think about your purpose. What are you here for? What does God want from you? Why did God put you in this situation? Think about the nefesh. Think about the godly soul. If you can do that, you will be the greatest lover of your fellow Jew that your fellow Jew has ever met.
What about the going?
That's a different chapter.
That's 33.
Actually,
That was another.
That's in book 2.
Lag Ba'omer. There was a great, speaking of the non-Jew, there was a great Hasidic teacher and mashpia, life coach. Huh? No.
This one didn't go to Gulag?
He may have, but that's not the story I'm telling you.
That's a credibility check.
Chances are he's been to a gulag or two, but regardless of that, he was the mashpia, the dean of Hasidic studies, the head of the Hasidic studies department in the original Chabad yeshiva in Lubavitch, in the city of Lubavitch.
Definitely.
And somebody once asked him, one of the students once asked him, no, I don't know what his last name was. He was known as Reb Hendel. His name was Reb Hendel. I don't know what family he's from. Somebody once asked Reb Hendel, how do you have Ahavat Yisrael? How do you love your... He was struggling with it. There are too many guys there that he didn't get along with. And he went for advice. I know I'm supposed to love my fellow Jew, but there are guys here that I really don't get along with. What do I do? So Hendel said to him, loving your fellow Jew, that's what a Jew does. Hating a Jew, that's what a goy does, what a non-Jew does. If you drive out the non-Jew within you and be left with only the Jew in you, you will love your fellow Jew.
You're either Jewish or you're not, so how do you have a Jew?
So what does that mean? Right? So what does that mean? What it means is if you can drive out the human in you, the not necessarily godly side of you, just the natural human instinct in you, drive out that human instinct. You see, what we're talking about here is we're not talking about being a good human being. A good human being doesn't love someone else just like they love themselves. A good human being loves everybody else. The mitzvah to love your fellow Jew as you love yourself, that's above human activity, behavior, expectation. That's an expectation of the godly soul. How do you let your godly soul be so vocal in you and so present and so felt within you that you actually love your fellow Jew as yourself? That's by tamping down or completely driving out the natural human instinct in you to where you're left with only a godly instinct. So when he said it, it sounded like a cute throwaway line. It's not a cute throwaway line. It's an incredibly difficult and lofty and noble task. To stop associating with your human side completely and just associate with your godly side, that's huge. If we can get a moment of that kind of feeling, that's a tremendous success. If we can get a whole 10 minutes of it, forget a whole day or a week or a month. The tzaddikim, a perfect tzaddik feels this way all the time. The rest of us, we try to get glimpses of it. Try to get a moment in your day where you're truly just feeling your godly soul and nothing else matters in that one moment. Try it for one moment. It's a big task. But that's the direction we're supposed to be moving in. Where we don't just respond. It's like the Talmud says, it's a little off topic, but the Talmud says that back in the olden days, there were what was known as the Chasidim Harishonim, the early pious ones. I don't know what that refers to. But it says that we talked about it earlier in Tanya, a few chapters ago. When everybody else would go to lunch, they would wait an hour or two. Why? Just to demonstrate that they're not responding to the wants of the body. The body is hungry? All right. It's okay to be hungry. I'll eat when I decide it's time to eat, not when my body says I'm hungry. That's like a beginning step to the process we're talking about now. If you can really just respond to the godly side of you and not respond to the human side of you, that's what we're talking about here. That the nefesh should be the priority in your life and not the body, not the human side of you. You become incredibly godly. And at the same time, very effective as a human being. Because you know your purpose, you know your mission, you know what you're here for, you know what's expected of you, and you do it selflessly. So focusing on your godly soul makes you a better human being than if you focus on your humanness. You focus on your humanness, you become burdened and conflicted and troubled and unsure and intimidated. If you focus on your godly side, as a human being, you excel. Because you know exactly what you're here for, and nothing's going to stop you from doing it because it's your purpose.
The question is pious?
Yeah.
That's what you mean.
Yeah.
That's how you travel?
Yeah. So like in the olden days, the Talmud, it says that this one of the sages of the Talmud was a wood chopper, and this one of the sages of the Talmud was a water carrier, and this guy was a butcher, and this guy was a winemaker, and this guy was a... You say, what are they doing all these things? Why didn't they just sit in the study hall and study all day? They know exactly what they were supposed to do, and they served Hashem in whatever human activities they needed to do. They found a way to make that part of their service of Hashem. So even their mundane jobs became part of a godly life, not the other way around. They didn't include their godly obligation in their human life. They included their human lives into their godly mission. That's what we're being asked to do. To elevate the soul and the importance of the soul over any sense of importance you ascribe to the body, to the human. That's only half the chapter. We'll get to the rest of it.
Is it done to the ego?
Yeah, it's very connected.
Connected to
That's the best thing.
Maybe.
but
Halavai.
then
San Diego, nice.
but then